Your workforce is your largest expense, and you need to leverage technology and processes to help manage that workforce. But oftentimes, it may feel like your business needs conform to the technology or paper processes that you have in place. We offer an end-to-end workforce management platform that allows you to recruit, retain, manage, and grow your workforce from the day that you decide to hire a new employee to the day that that employee retires. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about what our workforce management platform is. It's a SaaS or cloud-based system complete with payroll, HR, and time and labor management, all on one single database. This means it essentially acts as one application that only has one employee record. This means any data that is changed in HR or payroll, for instance, is automatically changed in time and labor in real time. And all of your reports can be run in real time too. You'll see in our demonstration that you'll be able to access information in the database and run reports based on the data you need when you need it. But I want to make another note that the platform is modular, so you only have to use what you need. If you're just in the market for payroll, HR, or time and labor management, or any combination of the three, you can utilize only what you need. Our customers have told us that we've really built an enterprise-level solution that is available on a small to mid-sized business budget. So without further ado, I'd like to dive right in and show you what you can do with our workforce management platform. We will be looking at the system from the perspective of the employee's life cycle. We will begin by diving into the onboarding process. Then we will take a look at some of the typical self-service features made available to an employee. Next, we'll review some of the approval processes and reporting capabilities available in the system from more of a manager's perspective. And finally, we will wrap up with the administrator's point of view, where we will run through the payroll process. With all that said, allow me to pull up our sample recruitment site. The Recruitment Module will allow you to post job openings directly onto your website or any other job board, which will allow candidates to apply for any open positions using the candidate self-service features. As you can see, a candidate can search for any job openings directly from the bottom of this screen. Rather than narrowing down our search further, we will just view all of the available job openings for this particular company. Let's take a look at the accountant position. A candidate would be able to view the full job description from this screen and decide if they would like to apply for that position. Candidates will be directed to a login screen that will require them to create their own unique username and password to log in and apply for that position. I'm going to log in as an existing user so that we can take a look at an application that's already been completed. As a new candidate completes their application, they will simply start by entering in their information within these tabs across the top. They can enter in their contact information. They can upload a copy of their resume. They can identify their job categories, their skills, their work experience, their education, etc. Keep in mind that this is a customized applicant experience, so you can make any of these fields within the application required. You can remove any of the tabs or the fields that do not apply, and you can also add any custom fields as well. Now ultimately, we will be able to review all of the information that they have entered here on the summary screen. Once they have verified the accuracy of their application, they can sign off on their application using their electronic signature, and then they can apply for that position. An email notification can be set up to be sent to the hiring manager to alert them that an application has been submitted, and all of the information that was gathered here on this application will flow into the applicant tracking system seamlessly. Now, oftentimes a company might want to perform a background screen on their candidates before they hire them. So we do have an integration to complete a background check right here through the system. A candidate can access their portal to sign off on the background check authorization form. Once the authorization form has been submitted using the employee's electronic signature, then the hiring manager would be able to order that background check through the system, and the results will also display within the system for easy access. Now let's take a look at the applicant tracking side of things. When we log in as Kathy, the hiring manager, we can see that there is a dashboard screen enabled, which is a great way to access certain areas of the system that the employee uses most frequently. A dashboard can be configured for each individual employee based on their role and the types of things that they may need to access within the system. Because this is one single database, you'll notice that Kathy has access to all functionality. Right here from her dashboard, she has the ability to manage all of her employees. She can process time and run payrolls. You can also have more than one dashboard view available. In this case, we have multiple dashboard views, and I've created a separate dashboard enabled just for recruitment purposes so that Kathy can easily manage the hiring process. Here on the recruitment dashboard, you can see that Kathy has a list of quick links that will give her easy access to the various areas of the system that she uses most frequently. She also has a window enabled which shows the hiring manager all of the new applications that have come through. There is a quick find tool which will allow the user to type in certain keywords such as a certain skill set or a certification that they are looking for, and then the results will display below. Let's take a look at our applicant's information. Remember, all of the information captured from the candidate will flow into the applicant tracking system seamlessly. The first screen that we come to is the main screen. This is where you can find all of the applicant's account information. Also from this screen, this is where you can see which jobs the candidate has applied for, and you will be able to navigate the applicants through the hiring stages by clicking on the View Job Applications icon. Here we can move the candidates through the different hiring stages from the time the applicant has submitted their application all the way through the hiring process. Given that every company's needs are different, these hiring stages are completely configurable. Now we can see here that our candidate is currently in the interview stage, and we do have the ability to track those interviews back on the Communications tab. As you can see, all of the details around each interview can be stored here, and there's even a notes area which will allow the hiring manager to jot down any notes around the interview that they can access at any time. Also, you do have the ability to email the candidate a confirmation email right here through the system. You have the option of either drafting an email on the fly or selecting from a predetermined email template. As you can see, we've created an email template that we can send to all of the candidates that move on to this phase of the interview process. You are able to create as many different templates as you need, so essentially you can have a separate email template for each stage of the hiring process to alert each candidate of where they stand within the process. Now let's fast forward a little bit and say that we are looking to hire this person. Perhaps a candidate has applied to more than one position. At this time, a pop-up will display for you to select the job application for the specific job that you are hiring this person into. You can tie specific profiles to each job, such as the employee type, the pay grade, and even the pay type, just to name a few. These will then be automatically populated for the new hire. This will then open a new window that will allow you to enter in the necessary information to get this person hired successfully. Notice that certain fields, such as the name and the address, have already been populated for you. This is pulling directly from their applicant information. You will need to simply fill out the remaining required information in order to hire this applicant. I do want to take a moment to talk about how the address works in conjunction with our tax engine. Our system uses geospatial technology to determine what taxes should be applied. It will look at the employee's home address as well as the company's address to determine the appropriate taxes. It is intuitive enough to calculate down to the local taxes, as well as taking into account the reciprocity agreements between states in regards to taxes. You also have the option to verify the employee's Social Security number through the Social Security Administration's database if you choose to, and it will determine if the Social Security number matches the employee's name. This is especially important at year-end because a large cause of corrected W-2s is actually caused by inaccurate Social Security numbers, and this will provide those checks and balances for you immediately upon hire. So let's take a look at how this would work. We're going to simply enter in a Social Security number in here for the employee. After we enter the Social Security number, we can simply click on the Social Security Verification button. And as you can see, my result showed up as failed because I simply entered in the numbers 1 through 9 as a Social Security number, but you are hoping for a verified result here. We will then need to enter in the base compensation, as well as a few other items such as the tax information, and a few additional settings such as the security profile, which will identify what types of features and functionalities that you would like this specific employee to have access to. Once you have identified all of the required information, you will have successfully hired this applicant. Now that we've hired our employee, let's take a quick look at his employee record. Remember, there is one employee record across all applications. Let's start here under the main screen. This is where you can assign or change profiles to the employee. You can add their manager, you can view their accrual balances, take a look at their demographic information, and even see their base compensation. Now I want to focus a little bit more under the HR tab just to give you some more information on the things that we can track within the system. For example, we can track the employee's education, any trainings or certifications that they may have, and also any incidents that could be disciplinary, performance, or even attendance issues can be stored here against their employee record. We also have the ability to scan all paper documents and store them here within the employee's record for easy access. As you know, the ability to track the ACA requirements has become a hot topic. We have reports that will help manage employees to make sure that we are in compliance with government guidelines. The system will track the number of hours worked per employee per month. We can also track whether the employee is considered to be a full-time or a part-time employee. We can keep track of the different measurement periods. We can identify if an affordable plan is being offered or a minimum value plan is being offered. Also, the system will alert us through a compliance alert if, for example, an employee is considered to be full-time, but we are not offering them an affordable plan. We can also be notified if an employee is approaching ACA full-time status or if they have a possible downgrade to part-time status. This is important when it comes to managing your employees more efficiently. At year end, the 1094 and 1095 forms will be populated with this information collected, and it will be ready for filing. We can also track any assets that have been issued to an employee, such as laptops, cell phones, and keys to the office. The system is intuitive enough to look back to the employee's record during the termination process, and it will prompt the user to make sure that those assets have been returned. Workers' claims can also be stored here within the employee's record as well. The information collected here within the workers' claim can also be populated onto the OSHA log, which will help streamline the process for the safety manager. While the system has the ability to store a wide range of data to fit your needs, every company is unique and so they might have special tracking needs. Under the HR Custom Fields screen, we have the ability to create an unlimited number of custom fields, and the data that's captured within these fields can be pulled into your different HR reports. We can take that concept one step further by creating custom screens to track specific data elements that are unique to you. An unlimited number of inventory items can be created. You can basically track anything that is not already built within the system. The example that we're looking at is the awards. Let's just take a look at this award in a little bit further detail by clicking here on the magnifying glass. Here you can create an unlimited number of custom fields that can be reported off of. You can also add any notes or upload supporting documentation such as a copy of a nomination form. This is another example of how flexible our system is and that you can track virtually anything. Now let's move on and take a look at the employee self-service features. Let's log in as Josh, our newly hired employee. When I log in as Josh, the first thing he sees is a dashboard where he has access to all of his employee self-service functionality. We have an announcement section which will display global messages visible by all company employees. There is a to-do list enabled, which will allow the employee to see the particular items that this person is responsible for completing. And the quick links section will allow the employee to navigate through the system using these hyperlinks that are being displayed here, which is a convenient alternative to using the menu options located at the top of the screen to navigate through. Now, as you bring on a new employee, you will need to train them on how to use the system. For example, they will need to know how to navigate through their employee self-service portal, clock in and out, request time off, etc. You have the ability to provide training aids to your employees to help them with these items. Let's take a quick look at what can be made available to your employees. As you can see, there are many quick tutorials that the employees can access. You also can make tutorials available to managers to give them instruction on how to approve time or run reports. Now that the new employee knows how to navigate through the system, I would like to bring your attention to the to-do items here on the dashboard. What's great is that you can put your standard hiring process into the new hire checklist to help streamline the onboarding process. We can view the full checklist by clicking here on the magnifying glass. As you can see, Kathy was responsible for completing the first few items here on this checklist, and Josh is responsible for completing these items listed below. The first item on this checklist is to review his handbook. As you can see, there is a handbook that has been uploaded into this checklist. The system will allow you to upload an unlimited number of documents within any given checklist. So the employee has the ability to review his handbook and then sign off on his handbook authorization form. You will notice that a custom form has been created for the employee to authorize that they have reviewed their handbook, and it will prompt them to sign off on this form using their electronic signature. This will then go through an approval process based on the workflow that you've defined. The I-9 and withholding forms are built standard within the system. These forms can be electronically signed off on and submitted for approval by the employee. Let's take a look at how Josh can complete his I-9 form. So we will go ahead and create a new form here for Josh. And you'll notice that it works just like the paper form. The system has already completed his personal information, such as his employee address, date of birth, and social security number, as this data is being pulled directly from his employee record. Essentially, Josh is responsible for attesting to his employment eligibility and submitting this with the appropriate documentation to back it up. So let's say that Josh is a citizen of the United States, and now he can submit his form for approval. Once the Submit I-9 button is clicked, the system will prompt Josh to enter in his unique password, which will serve as his electronic signature. You will see now that his name and the date have appeared here on this form, and this form will now be sent over to the administrator for review and approval. That person would be responsible for reviewing the documentation provided by the employee and completing Section 2 of this form. If the administrator would like to upload a scanned copy of the documentation, she could do so. Once finished, they would be prompted to sign off on the form using their electronic signature, and after the I-9 form has been approved, you can run this employee through E-Verify, which is fully integrated within our system. This will determine if the employee is authorized to work within the United States. It will capture all of the information collected here on the I-9 form and populate it within E-Verify, and the results will also display within the system as well. Another onboarding item that we need to take a look at is the withholding forms. Let's take a look at Josh's completed federal form, as it's the same universal form for everybody. This works the same way as the paper form. He needs to simply complete his worksheet, and once he's ready to submit it, he will sign off on this using his electronic signature. This information collected on the electronic form will automatically be updated within the payroll system upon approval, eliminating the manual process. A new employee would also need to submit their direct deposit information. This is an example of an HR action request. An HR action request will allow an employee to make changes to their personal information, such as an address change, a 401k deferral change, a beneficiary change, or in this case, a direct deposit change. HR actions will go through an approval process, and once approved, the employee's personal information will automatically be updated within the system based on the effective dating entered here on this form. With this direct deposit change, we will first need to enter in the effective date, and then we can enter in the direct deposit information. There is the ability to verify the routing number right here through the system by clicking on the Validate button. This will pull up the bank's address and phone number and provides those checks and balances for the employee immediately as they're entering in their information. Once this has been submitted, it will go through a workflow process. Upon approval, the direct deposit will become effective in the system based on the effective dating defined here on this form. Now let's take a look at how an employee would be able to elect his or her benefits through the system. An employee can elect to roll in their benefits for open enrollment or for life change events. In this case, we are going to start the open enrollment process for Josh. We are first brought to the instructions screen, which is completely configurable. Each tab represents the different benefit plans that are being offered. We also do have a passive enrollment option, which will allow an employee to select to continue their current coverage, or they can change their elections. For the medical insurance, you will notice that we are offering more than one type of plan. That being said, employees can review and compare plans. If we wanted to dig into the plan a little bit further, we can click here on the magnifying glass to review the coverage information in order to get more details around the plan. As you can see, this will allow the employee to review the plan information, including the copays, the deductibles, and the out-of-pocket limits. You also have the ability to upload a copy of the plan documentation for the employee to access right here at their fingertips to help make a more informed decision. Now let's say that we want to compare the employee-only plans. We can simply click on the boxes here under the Compare column, and this will bring up a nice side-by-side comparison of these two plans. So we can take a look at the differences between the copays and the deductibles, etc., and make a more informed decision on which plan we should move forward with. Now we can make our selection and move on to the next tab. The same process will apply here to the dental insurance. However, for every benefit plan, we do have the option to waive the coverage. At this time, I will waive my dental insurance. As you can see, the system will prompt me for the reason for waiving my coverage. So perhaps I'm covered under my spouse's plan. Now we can move forward with our life insurance selection. Here we've set up an age-based deduction amount based on the coverage that we've selected. We are using units. Every unit equals $1,000 worth of coverage. In this case, I have it defaulted to 50 units, which equals $50,000 worth of coverage. In this case, we can also see that 100 units or less is guaranteed, but it's possible to request more if the evidence of insurability is provided. That being said, let's see what happens if I enter more than the guaranteed amount. Now there is a disclaimer stating that the EOI is required and a limit will be imposed until that has been supplied. We can see an example of this under the coverage and the employee costs column. Here we can see the difference between the guaranteed amount versus the requested amount. An employee also has the ability to upload a copy of their EOI form, and then they can make their selection. Once an employee has elected all of the coverages that they are going to enroll in, they can confirm their selections. On this screen, you will be required to add any beneficiaries or dependents if necessary before submitting your request for approval. Now within each benefit plan, you can set up rules to identify children's eligibility, such as age restrictions, and you can determine when the coverage will end when a child reaches set age. As we can see here, we are required to add a beneficiary for our life insurance plan. And we can identify that beneficiary by clicking here on the Add Beneficiary icon. I'm going to go ahead and make a selection. And now you can see here that we've added his spouse as his beneficiary. Once I've added my beneficiary, I am now able to submit my request. And as a last step in the process, I am asked to review our selections one final time and sign off on this using my electronic signature. Once we do that, a window will appear which will ask me if we want to print the confirmation. Then the benefits are pushed on to the appropriate person to review our selections and approve them. Once approved, they will be saved against the employee's record and come into play based on the effective dating set up for the selected plans. Also, we have an integration that will provide carrier connection services. This will automatically send the carriers all of the updates based on whatever frequency you've set up. Now let's take a look at how Josh would use the system to track his time. Here in the middle of the dashboard, we have embedded the mobile app into an external URL to give you an example of what this looks like. The mobile app will allow employees to clock in and out. They can also request time off and view their historical payroll data. Also, from a manager's perspective, they have the ability to edit and approve time from the mobile app as well. In addition to tracking time through the mobile app, we can also work with a variety of different hardware devices, which range from simple swipe devices to biometric devices. Of course, employees can also track their time using the web portal as well. Let's take a look. I can use my quick links here to access my current timesheet. And this is one of 9 different timesheet formats that we have available. So there are several options with regard to how the employees could enter in their time. This timesheet that we are looking at is the strictest of the available timesheet formats. It uses the server time, which can be adjusted for the different time zones. By clicking on the Change Department button, a predetermined list will appear from which Josh can make a selection. We can now see that the system has automatically clocked Josh out of the first department and into the next one. Now you can rename this button to meet your needs depending on what cost center structure you are looking to track, whether it's department, job, or even location. There are other timesheet features that employees can be given access to, such as the ability to leave notes. This can be used if an employee had a missing punch and wanted to leave a note to explain why they left without clocking out. An email notification would be sent to the manager when a note has been entered, prompting them to review that note and take any necessary action. The system also allows the employees to track additional information, such as tips, mileage, and even expense reimbursements. As an example, let's say that Josh goes to an off-site meeting with a client and stops along the way for gas. We can see that Josh would be able to assign the expenses to a specific date, a specific department. He can also select the pay category and enter in the dollar amount for that expense. In addition to simply tracking these expenses, he can also upload a copy of the gas receipt for this manager to review in order to keep this whole process paperless. And lastly, this entry can also be set up so that it must be approved by a manager during the timesheet approval process, and once approved, this extra pay will flow over into payroll. Let's also take a look at how an employee can request time off in the system. Josh can use the quick links here to request time off. And the request time off screen contains 3 parts: the request tool, the time off balances, and also the recent requests. To request time off, a user would simply select the type of time off that they're wishing to put in. Then the employee can select how he would like to take his vacation. For example, is it going to be a full day, partial day, or multiple day increments? For our purpose, let's choose a full day. The system can be configured to require that a comment be added. Let's say that we're taking the kids to the zoo. Once this has been submitted, an email notification will alert the manager that the time off request has been submitted and is ready for their review. Back under the Balances window, we will now notice the color-coded feature will alert approvers as to whether the employee has enough authorized time available. If enough time is authorized, a pending request would be reflected in green. If not, the requested time off would appear in red. You can also prevent a request from going through if it were to bring an employee into the negative balance. Last but not least, let's touch on the payroll self-service items from an employee's perspective. One way an employer can show the employee's total value of their benefits and compensation package is to provide a total compensation statement. An employee has access to view all of their benefit statements through their ESS, which contains both direct and indirect compensation, including the employer-paid items. Employees also have the ability to preview their pay statements. We do not purge any historical pay statements, so an employee can view any of their historical pay statements from this screen. If Josh wanted to see a copy of his pay statement, he would simply be able to click on the Preview Pay Statement icon. Here we can see the pay statement along with the stub displaying all of his earnings, his taxes, his deductions, his timesheet information, his accrual balances, and we can also make available global and/or individual messages to the employee. Josh also has the ability to print a PDF version of his pay statement. All historical W-2s can also be found within the Employee Self-Service portal. If Josh needed to access his W-2, he could do so by clicking on the Preview W-2 icon. Here is an example of the W-2. Josh has the ability to download this W-2 as a PDF, and he can then print that out or save his W-2 for future viewing. With that, we have concluded the employee self-service features. Now let's move on and take a look at the system more from a manager's perspective. I'm going to log in as Paul, the manager of our sample company. You will notice that Paul has a much more extensive dashboard enabled. Remember, each dashboard can be configured to meet each individual user's needs. In this case, Paul's dashboard is geared more towards his managerial duties and puts all of the information that he needs to know about his employees right here at his fingertips. That being said, it's one employee login across the entire database, so Paul still has access to all of his employee self-service functionality right here under the My Account menu option. From here, he can still enroll in his benefits, request time off, etc. On Paul's dashboard, there is a list of quick links that take him to the items that he accesses most frequently. He also has an attendance board to see who's in and out of the office at any given point throughout the day. This information is available in real time if the employees are clocking in through the web or an Ethernet device. This report is also available on the mobile app so that managers can keep tabs on their employees while they're away from the office. We also have an exceptions report available here on the dashboard. Exceptions will keep track of who's tardy or absent. This report is color-coded for easy identification and will allow the manager to drill down into that timesheet if need be. Now let's close out a few of the open items that we started here on the employee side, such as approving time off. As you can see, the time off request that we submitted for Josh is being displayed right here on the dashboard. As the manager, we need to understand a couple of things before we make our decision. First, we want to check Josh's available time off balances. Remember, the system is color-coded so we can easily identify that Josh does have a positive balance. So now that we know this information, we want to check to see if there are any other employees who are scheduled to be out on the same day that Josh is requesting off. In this case, we can see that there are 2 other employees requesting off on this particular day. So now that we know this information, we can make a more informed decision on whether or not we should approve or reject this request. I'm going to go ahead and approve the request, and the system will prompt me for a comment. This request will then continue through a workflow approval process, and once it reaches that final approval state, the time off will be updated on their timesheet accordingly. Now let's move on and take a look at how a manager would be able to review and approve timesheets. First, we need to check to see if there are any missing punches before we move through the timesheet approval process. An easy way of identifying a missing punch is to include this information within the timesheets awaiting my approval window. Here we can see that Josh does have an incomplete time entry, and we can drill down into Josh's timesheet by clicking on the Edit Timesheet icon. We can see that he had a missing punch on Monday, and in this case it looks like he did not punch out at the end of the day. However, he did leave us a note. In this case it looks like he left at 3 p.m. So we can enter that missing punch here on the timesheet and save this record. I do want to point out that we have an audit trail in place. We can capture who made the change, when the change was made, the old value versus a new value, and even which IP address the change was made from. That way, if you ever have a discrepancy, you can always look back to that audit trail. Now that we've corrected the missing punch, we are ready to go ahead and approve the timesheets. We can review them and approve them individually, or we can select them all and approve them all at once. These timesheets can be set up to go through a timesheet approval process, and once this reaches its final approval state, then these timesheets will be in a state ready for payroll. Now let's take a look at how Paul can run reports on the employees he manages. The report that we will be using today is our detailed hours report. With any given report, you have the ability to use filters to gather the appropriate data. The first filter that we see here is the Employees filter, which will allow you to sort by specific employees. Next, you will see that we have the Timesheet Dates filter. This is where you can sort by pay period, calendar range, or even date range. In this case, we are looking at last week's data. In addition to these filters, you can also search through this report for specific criteria. Let's take a look at the first name column. At the top of this column, we can see that we have the ability to search for criteria that's equal to, starts with, like, not like, etc. Let's use this search option to search for Josh's information. Now we can see all of Josh's time entries, where he worked, how many hours he worked, etc. There is even a subtotal at the bottom of this report, which will calculate the total number of hours Josh worked based on the date range that we defined within this report. Now let's remove this filter. And I want to show you how easy it is to customize this report to get it just the way that you want it. Within any given report, you have the ability to easily add additional information by clicking on this Select Columns button. On the right side here, we can see all of the columns that are currently being displayed within your report. And on the left-hand side are all of the available columns that we can report off of. We have the option to search through this list for the column that you want to bring in. Let's say we want to bring in the hourly pay. I can type in the first couple of letters, and my hourly pay column has pulled over into this report. Once we pull that into the report, we have the ability to move this around the report to get it set up the way that we need it to be. And when we're ready, we can select our columns. Now we can see the hourly pay is being displayed within our report. Now at the top of each column, we can see that there are a couple of different icons. We have the ability to change the sort order, so we can sort by ascending or descending value. We also have the ability to remove this column, or we can group the column. Let's group this report by the department. Now that this report is grouped by department, we can see each department listed, and at the bottom of each department we will see a subtotal for the total number of hours worked within that department based on that date range that we defined. Once we have this report set up the way that we want it to be, we can save those settings. Now every time we come into this report, it will appear in this format. Also, this report can be exported out of the system into these different export formats. Keep in mind that you have the ability to customize any report in our system in the same way. You can also set up each report to automatically be run and emailed to an inbox as an add-on feature. With that, we have wrapped up the Manager Self-Service Portal. Let's now log in and take a look at the administrator side of things. Let's log in as our administrator, Kathy. As we can see here, you can have announcements displayed on the top of the dashboard to act as reminders to the employees. In this case, it looks like we need to review a performance review for a moment. In this system, you do have the ability to set up multiple levels of workflow for performance reviews and identify who would be responsible for each step. In our example, let's take a look at how to finalize a review. As you can see, there are 3 levels of workflow set up for this review. The employee's self-review counts as a small percentage of her total ranking. She is being reviewed on her core values, her company competencies, and her goals. When we take a look at that final ranking, you will notice that it is taking into account all of the different variables, and the system is intuitive enough to determine the final weighted average for each review. From the bottom of this screen, Kathy can enter in additional comments. She can enter in the date that the employee signed off on their review. Pay increases can also be identified during the finalization process, which can also be tied to our compensation module, where the system will look to the finalized review and make recommendations on what the increase should be based on their pay grade. Managers can use the budgeting tool to propose increases that will go through a workflow process and will go into effect based on the effective date defined. As you can see here, you also have the ability to enter in a job title, a bonus, or even a new manager if the review triggers it. Now let's talk about how we can go about processing a payroll. Back here in our dashboard, we have a list of all of our open payrolls. I'm going to use this list to access our payroll and pull up our payroll prep process. This outlines the items that need to be completed in a checklist type format. The first step is to go to the time prep process. This helps the admin make sure that all of the time and labor data collected throughout the pay period is ready before it's taken into account for payroll. Once this process is complete, we can easily get back to our payroll checklist by clicking on this final step. Syncing the time will put all of the data reviewed and approved from the time prep process that we just looked at, and it will put it into a batch for us to work with. This is the batch that the payroll admin would use to enter in their data. You will notice that I am able to navigate through this batch using my keyboard rather than my mouse. So all of my Excel hotkeys and shortcuts can be used here. Now let's talk about how we would go about editing our batch. We have the concept of payroll alerts. Payroll alerts can be set up globally to flag when an employee is being paid over a certain dollar amount, while an individual alert would be set up to remind a user of something that needs to be done for that particular payroll using effective dating. To view the alert, we will simply click here on the icon. And in this case, an individual alert has been set up to remind the user to enter in a bonus for Paul. Notice that this request does require a sign-off. Without signing off on this alert, we will not be able to submit our payroll for finalization. That being said, let's sign off on this alert, and then we'll take a look at how to enter this bonus within the batch. To enter a bonus for Paul, we would want to add $500 under the bonus supplemental column. I want to point out that we kept the bonus on the same pay statement as the regular earnings, and the system is intuitive enough to tax the regular earnings at the regular tax rate while it taxes the bonus at the supplemental rate, keeping everything on one check. Now, of course, if you wanted to, these could be separated onto two separate checks by simply adding in a new line item here. So we could enter in that bonus on this second line item, and we could change this pay statement type. Now, as the batch is being saved and updated, calculations are being applied in real time, so you can review the pay statements. You can also run any payroll report, such as the payroll register and other reports, with no need for the traditional pre-process. If we take a look at Paul's pay statement, we are seeing here that this pay statement has not yet been finalized. You will notice the bonus that we just entered is appearing here on this pay statement, so we can see how this is going to affect his taxes or his take-home pay. Using the payroll quick links, we will be able to run some of the payroll reports as I had mentioned. First, let's take a look at the payroll register. Once again, the information that we are looking at on the payroll register is pulling from the grid in its current state. From this report, you have access to the employee's pay statement information once again. You also can drill down into the employee's record to make any permanent changes to their payroll settings. So let's take a quick look. If you needed to update their direct deposit information or change a deduction, we could do that right here from the payroll section of their employee record. Once those changes have been saved, you can hit the back button and you will be brought back out to the last screen that you were on, in this case, our payroll register. Now let's take a look at our general ledger. Keep in mind that this can be formatted based on the accounting software specifications. As I shared earlier, there are several different formats that can be exported in, including Excel or QuickBooks. The last report that I'd like to show you today is our Payroll Recap and Funding Report. Here we can see the payroll overview, including the number of paid employees, the total check amount, the total direct deposit amount, the tax liabilities, any vendor payments such as any garnishments. We can also see what your total cash requirements are. We have a general ledger summary. We can also take a look at the difference between this pay period and last pay period, and also review the rolling 12-month payroll view. Now let's go back to our payroll prep checklist. So we've already taken a look at our batch. The next item here on this checklist is to add edit pay statements. This will actually bring up a list of all of the employees that will allow you to make edits to their individual pay statements rather than working within the batch entry screen. Next, we need to make sure that all of the open payroll alerts have been closed before we can submit our payroll. The next step here will be to close the payroll, and if there were any errors, those would be flagged here in this step. After the payroll has been closed, the payroll will be able to be submitted for finalization and delivery. Before we conclude, I think it's important to share why businesses like yours are typically looking for a workforce management solution. They are typically trying to either control labor costs, minimize compliance risk, improve productivity, drive operational efficiency, or simply foster continuous improvement of their business, or, of course, a combination of these things. We are able to help businesses achieve these goals by providing them with a solution to assist them with saving on payroll expenses, eliminating administrative waste, remaining compliant to avoid lawsuits and settlements, reducing absenteeism, streamlining and reducing turnover, reducing overtime, standardizing and controlling company expansion, and finding growth opportunities through big data. The world is constantly changing, and the competitive landscape in every industry is continuing to evolve. So we provide the technology to help you across this platform at any time, from anywhere, on any device. Don't let your technology and systems hold you back anymore. We will show you how you can recruit, retain, manage, and grow your workforce in one simple way. On a cloud-based, end-to-end workforce management platform that has been proven across the spectrum of small to mid-sized businesses, with companies ranging from just a few to a few thousand employees. And it won't take you long to get up and running because there is no installation, maintenance, or IT resources required. It's time to start opening the door to your workforce's potential, and we can help. Thank you for your time, and please contact us today to learn more.